Welcome to Threads of Truth, the podcast where real-life mysteries meet internet speculation. Today, we explore the chilling pact between two sisters, the silence that bonded them, and the death that separated them forever. Imagine this. Two identical twin girls who, from the moment they could communicate, constructed an entire intricate world just for the two of them, steadfastly refusing to speak to anyone else for decades.
It's an extraordinary, almost unfathomable level of isolation and connection, isn't it? A profound and deliberate withdrawal from the entire external world.
Exactly. And then, at the precise moment their lifelong, self-imposed silence was finally broken, the very day they were approved for release from a high-security psychiatric facility, one of them dies.
Under utterly inexplicable and tragic circumstances.
It's a story that truly makes you wonder, in the most haunting way, if one twin truly had to die for the other to finally live freely.
A question that hangs over everything.
So let's try and unpack this deeply unsettling case that's captivated so many even decades later. We're talking about June and Jennifer Gibbons.
Identical twins, born April 11, 1963.
Now, our sources offer a slight geographical nuance regarding their birth. One says Barbados, another mentions Yemen.
Slight discrepancy there. But what's consistent is that they were born to Barbadian parents.
And their family eventually made a significant move to the UK, settling in a small town called Haverfordwest in Wales.
And this detail, for anyone trying to understand their story, is absolutely pivotal.
Why is that?
Well, in their school, they were the only Black students.
Okay. That immediately sets them apart.
Massively. That detail about their schooling in Haverfordwest isn't just a footnote. It's really a foundational piece of their story. Being the sole Black students in that environment immediately cast them as outsiders.
Making them targets, I imagine.
Exactly. Our sources, particularly the extensive work of journalist Marjorie Wallace, indicate they faced intense, often brutal bullying.
Not just teasing.
No. This was a profound daily psychological trauma. What's crucial here is understanding that this external pressure became a primary catalyst for their radical withdrawal.
From the outside world.
Completely. From a very young age, they began to retreat, not just shyly, but with an absolute, almost strategic refusal to communicate with anyone except each other.
Anyone at all. Not even family.
Reports suggest communication was minimal to non-existent, even with parents and siblings outside of their twin unit. Imagine the sustained stress, the feeling of being perpetually under siege that would drive two young children to such an extreme.
It's hard to fathom.
Their silence wasn't a symptom of a simple disorder. It was a coping mechanism, a self-imposed linguistic fortress against a world that felt hostile and incomprehensible.
A linguistic fortress. That's a powerful way to put it. This wasn't merely stopping communication, it was an active construction, wasn't it? An elaborate shared inner world.
It was far more than just not talking. Their retreat wasn't merely passive. It was, like you said, an active construction of an elaborate shared inner world, a psychological fortress built for two.
So what did that look like inside this fortress?
Within this intensely private sphere, they didn't just stop talking. They cultivated an entirely new paradigm of communication. They started mirroring each other's every move, even their breathing patterns, apparently.
Wow. Synchronized.
Completely. And they developed a totally private language. It's described by those who tried to study them as a sped-up, almost incomprehensible form of Bajan Creole.
So incomprehensible even to family who might know Bajan Creole.
Yes, because it was their own distorted, rapid-fire version. This wasn't simply a secret code. It was a dialect of their shared existence, a bond so absolute, so complete, that it negated the need for anyone else.
They became, in essence, a single unit.
That's a very good way to put it. If we connect this to the broader landscape of psychology, it raises profound questions about the formation of identity. How do you develop a sense of self, of I, when your entire existence is reflected and intertwined with another to this degree?
Where your very thoughts and movements are synchronized.
Exactly. Without the necessary external interactions, the individual ego struggles to differentiate. The twins' intense, shared delusion became their entire reality, effectively preventing the formation of a distinct I, trapping them in a perpetual we.
Almost like a shared consciousness.
In a way, yes. For you, our listener, consider a bond so absolute, so all-encompassing, that it renders every other human connection utterly redundant. What becomes of individual identity in such a crucible?
It's truly mind-bending to imagine. And what's truly striking about June and Jennifer, something that makes their story even more complex, is the profound contradiction within their lives.
Mm-hmm.
Despite their severe self-imposed silence and isolation, they were incredibly intelligent.
Highly intelligent, yes.
And perhaps even more surprisingly, profoundly creative.
Yeah.
This wasn't a case of intellectual stagnation due to their withdrawal. Quite the opposite.
Not at all. They were constantly
Extensively filling hundreds of notebooks, right?
Yeah.
With novels, short stories, poems.
a huge volume of work.
And here's where it gets particularly fascinating and maybe a bit disturbing. Their work often contained dark, sometimes chilling and unsettling themes.
Violence, destruction, sacrifice.
It's almost as if their internal, isolated world, while intensely creative, was also bubbling with a kind of turmoil, a rich yet disturbing inner landscape that found its way onto the page.
Their writing is absolutely a crucial window into their shared psyche. These weren't just adolescent scribblings, you know. Their narratives were elaborate, often disturbing psychological blueprints.
Can you give an example?
Well, June, for instance, penned a novel titled The Pepsi-Cola Addict. It's a harrowing tale of an American doctor who seduces a local boy, leading to his imprisonment and a desperate search for freedom. Themes of entrapment, escape.
And Jennifer's work.
Equally vivid and often even darker, her stories frequently depicted violence, murder, and the tragic consequences of intense, consuming love, betrayal, confinement, and critically, this recurring idea of a sacrificial act leading to liberation.
Sacrifice again.
Yes. One could argue their fiction was a safe space for the raw, intense emotions they couldn't or wouldn't express verbally, a symbolic acting out of their internal struggles.
But what's particularly eerie looking back
Is how these themes escape, sacrifice, the breaking of powerful bonds would later manifest so directly in their own lives. It's chilling.
And as they entered their late teens, this potent internal world, with its creative intensity and dark undertones, started to spill over.
Into the external world, yeah, in increasingly disruptive and ultimately criminal ways. It wasn't just confined to the pages of their notebooks anymore.
How did that start?
Well, the external manifestation of their internal chaos began with a spree of petty crimes that escalated in severity. They engaged in acts of vandalism, not just minor defacement, but significant destruction, breaking windows, causing property damage.
Okay.
There was petty theft, often stealing small, seemingly random items from shops.
But then it got more serious.
Much more serious. The most alarming of these acts, and the one that truly drew the attention of authorities, was arson.
Arson. Wow.
They set several fires, sometimes targeting abandoned buildings, other times more public structures. These weren't impulsive, random acts in the way maybe a typical delinquent might commit them.
No.
There seemed to be a method, a kind of shared performance in their criminality, often executed together, reinforcing their mutual defiance of society.
A performance.
The acts themselves were destructive, a clear signal of their internal turmoil finally erupting. And ultimately, this spree led to their arrest and subsequent legal proceedings in 1981.
It was a stark and tragic departure from the quiet, artistic world they had cultivated for so long.
A very sharp turn.
And these actions had profound consequences, leading them to Broadmoor Hospital. What was that experience like for them, confined within the walls of a high-security psychiatric facility?
Broadmoor was, in many ways, an inevitable and yet profoundly complex chapter. At the age of 19 in 1981, June and Jennifer were sentenced to Broadmoor.
High security.
Very high security. They would spend the next 11 years within its formidable walls. Here, their unique psychological state presented an enormous challenge to the staff.
How were they diagnosed there?
They were formally diagnosed with selective mutism, which was, overtly clear in their refusal to speak to anyone outside their twin bond. But more importantly, and perhaps more accurately, they were believed to suffer from shared psychosis.
Folie à deux.
Exactly, folie à deux. And this isn't merely two people having similar delusions. It's a symbiotic mental state where one person's delusions are fully adopted and reinforced by another.
Creating this unbreachable shared reality.
Pretty much a reality that few outsiders could ever penetrate.
So it wasn't just that they chose not to speak. Their reality was fundamentally altered by their shared delusion, making communication with the outside world almost impossible for them.
That seems to be the core of it. Medical staff at Broadmoor found them to be brilliant in their own way, possessing high IQs but largely unreachable.
Attempts at therapy failed.
Many attempts, yes. Employing various psychiatric approaches of the era, they largely failed to break through that shared silence. Psychologists and psychiatrists really wrestled with how to intervene in such an impenetrable bond.
And what happened if they tried to separate them?
That's even more revealing about the depth of their codependency. Our sources describe instances where, when efforts were made to separate them, even for brief periods, they often became catatonic.
Catatonic, just shut down completely.
Yes. Highlighting the extreme depth of their codependency and the fragility of their shared delusional world without each other's immediate physical presence. It's a stark illustration of how their individual identities had fused into a single vulnerable entity.
It sounds like an almost impossible situation for mental health professionals back then. How do you treat two people whose very sense of self is so deeply intertwined?
A massive challenge.
And during this long confinement, one individual really became central to understanding their story, didn't she?
Indeed. It was during this period that journalist Marjorie Wallace entered their lives.
Like the author.
Yes. She formed a uniquely close relationship with the twins over decades, painstakingly documenting their extraordinary story. Her influential book, The Silent Twins, published in 1986.
That book provided crucial insights, didn't it?
Crucial, intimate insights into their private world, their internal dialogue, their powerful creative output that really no one else had access to. Wallace effectively became their conduit to the outside.
The only one they consistently communicated with.
Pretty much. And, this raises an important question about the efficacy of psychiatric care in that era for such a complex, intertwined condition. While Broadmoor was arguably necessary for containment, given the arson, how much did the institutional environment and even the attempts at separation inadvertently deepen their already profound bond? Did it solidify their shared reality rather than helping them find individual footing?
It's a difficult question. Did the institution itself become part of the problem?
It's a testament to the limitations of medical understanding for such unique psychological states at the time.
It truly makes you wonder about the long-term impact of such an environment. After 11 years within those walls, in 1993, a significant change was finally on the horizon.
A huge development.
One that ultimately led to the most mysterious and tragic turn in their story. They were approved for transfer from the high-security Broadmoor to a lower-security facility, the Caswell Clinic.
A step down, supposedly towards more freedom.
This was supposed to be a step towards a less restrictive life, perhaps even a glimmer of hope for some form of reintegration.
The transfer represented a monumental shift, a crossing of a threshold they had arguably anticipated, maybe even feared, for years.
Absolutely. And it's on the bus ride to this new clinic that the story takes its chilling, pivotal turn. A moment of profound significance occurs.
Yes, this is the crucial moment.
Jennifer, for so long the twin who seemed, by some accounts, to possess more fragile spirit, she rested her head on June's shoulder and reportedly whispered, "At long last, we're out."
Simple words, but carrying so much weight.
The weight of over a decade of confinement and a lifetime of shared isolation. A declaration of freedom, a breath exhaled after so many years. But the immediate, shocking aftermath is where this story becomes truly inexplicable.
That happens so fast.
Upon arrival at the Caswell Clinic, Jennifer could not be roused. The staff quickly realized something was terribly wrong.
She was unresponsive.
Totally. She was rushed to the hospital, where just hours later, at the young age of 29, Jennifer Gibbons died.
Just like that, after 11 years inside, on the very day of transfer.
The speed and suddenness of it were astounding. The autopsy revealed the cause of death as acute myocarditis, a sudden, unexplained inflammation of the heart.
Myocarditis. Okay.
But crucially, no drugs, alcohol, or trauma were found in her system. The inquest found no evidence of poison or foul play.
So no obvious external cause, just inflammation of the heart.
A death without any clear external explanation.
Yeah.
A medical mystery. But then
Comes June's account.
June later recounted to Marjorie Wallace, the journalist, a chilling detail from their time back in Broadmoor. A conversation where Jennifer had allegedly said to her, with an eerie premonition,
What did she say?
"I'm going to have to die now."
Chilling, like she knew.
And after Jennifer's death, June told Wallace something even more profound and disturbing. a statement that has reverberated through every retelling of their story.
The famous quote,
I'm free at last, liberated, and at last Jennifer has given up her life for me.
given up her life for me. That phrasing is everything.
That statement from June, Jennifer has given up her life for me, is the kind of detail that sends shivers down your spine and launches 1,000 theories. It's the anchor for so much of the speculation that swirls around this case.
Understandably so.
So let's examine this primary and most compelling theory, one that circulates widely online, particularly across Reddit threads and fan forums. The idea of a twin pact.
The twin pact theory is indeed the most haunting and, to many, the most credible explanation given the circumstances. It suggests that June and Jennifer, recognizing the inseparable nature of their bond and its restrictive power,
They made an agreement.
they had a long-standing secret agreement. They believed, in their intensely shared reality, that they could not both be free and sane at the same time.
One existence was limiting the other.
Or their combined existence, this psychological singularity, was simply too powerful, too overwhelming, and too restrictive for individual liberation. One had to make the ultimate sacrifice for the other to truly live a normal, independent life.
And this wasn't just a spur-of-the-moment thing.
Unlikely. The theory suggests it was a deep-seated belief, perhaps cultivated over years, that true individual liberation for one could only be achieved through the ultimate sacrifice of the other. Our sources, particularly Marjorie Wallace's interactions with June, strongly imply this was a conscious, or at least intensely discussed, understanding between them.
And June's own words, the ones she spoke to Marjorie Wallace both leading up to and immediately following Jennifer's death, lend an undeniable eerie power to this theory.
Absolutely. It moves it beyond just speculation.
It moves from pure speculation to something with a compelling, albeit deeply disturbing, foundation. Her reporting of Jennifer saying, I'm going to have to die now, followed by June's declaration of freedom. It makes the idea of a prearranged pact incredibly difficult to dismiss as mere coincidence.
It feels like the fulfillment of a prophecy they themselves had written.
Exactly.
And this brings us to a further, even more speculative, but equally fascinating concept: the intersection of the pact theory with the idea of psychosomatic death.
Okay, psychosomatic death. What does that mean exactly?
This is the controversial, though occasionally documented, phenomenon where a person can mentally will themselves to die or manifest a severe, often fatal physical illness through extreme psychological influence.
Controversial because it's hard to prove.
Very hard to prove scientifically. The scientific community largely remains skeptical because the mechanisms aren't clear or replicable. But there are documented, albeit rare instances, often in highly ritualized or extremely stressful situations. Think voodoo death or cases of profound grief or fear in isolated communities, where an overwhelming psychological state appears to trigger a physiological shutdown.
So we're talking about the mind having such profound power over the body that it could essentially shut it down.
That's the idea.
Could Jennifer, with her profound psychological state, her stated belief in this pact with June and their intensely shared reality,
Yeah.
could she have somehow manifested her death through her own will?
Could her body have responded to an unconscious or conscious command, leading to the medically unexplained acute myocarditis? That's the core of the psychosomatic theory here.
But myocarditis is a real physical condition.
It is, absolutely, an inflammation of the heart muscle. But its sudden, unexplained onset in Jennifer, coupled with the lack of other clear causes and her sister's chilling testimony, it makes this particular case a profound enigma.
It forces us to confront the boundaries of our understanding of the mind-body connection.
A frontier that modern medicine still doesn't fully comprehend. Could the psychological burden, the overwhelming internal conviction of a necessary sacrifice, have triggered a physiological shutdown? It's a truly unique case study that challenges our conventional explanations.
Pushing us to consider the immense, almost terrifying power of the human mind.
It really does.
That's certainly a profound and unsettling possibility, one that challenges our very understanding of life and death. But as with any mystery, there are always those who seek a more grounded yet still speculative explanation.
Of course.
Another avenue of speculation, particularly among those who seek concrete medical explanations, involves the possibility of medical negligence or oversight during their long institutionalization.
It's a valid line of inquiry, particularly when examining a case with such extensive institutional care over 11 years. These theories speculate that staff at Broadmoor or maybe the transferring institutions might have overlooked pre-existing symptoms.
Symptoms of an underlying undiagnosed heart condition in Jennifer.
Exactly. Something which eventually led to the acute myocarditis. Given their selective mutism and their extreme withdrawal from non-twin interactions, it's entirely plausible that standard medical assessments might have missed subtle cues or symptoms.
Things a more communicative patient would have expressed.
Precisely. Imagine trying to elicit symptoms from someone who refuses to speak to you, or who communicates only in a private, incomprehensible language. It would be incredibly difficult.
So the very nature of their condition could have made it incredibly difficult for medical professionals to accurately diagnose any underlying physical ailments. They might have been suffering silently.
It's a definite possibility. The challenges of managing patients in such a specialized, high-security facility, coupled with the twins' unique presentation, meant that routine checkups might not have been thorough enough. Or perhaps any complaints they might have silently harbored went unaddressed.
So even though the autopsy found no other clear cause.
Right. While the autopsy found no other clear medical cause for the myocarditis, this theory explores the potential for oversights within their extensive long-term institutional care.
Yeah.
Could years of intense psychological stress, maybe combined with subtle, unaddressed physical health issues, have converged at that critical moment of transfer?
It's a question that certainly merits consideration, particularly when reflecting on the complexities of healthcare within the confines of such institutions back then.
Definitely worth considering.
And shifting gears now, as we connect this to the broader landscape of internet discussions, we find ourselves delving into even more speculative realm.
The internet definitely runs with this story.
Niche YouTube creators and TikTokers often explore paranormal or spiritual interpretations of the twins' bond and Jennifer's death.
Indeed, the profound intimacy often associated with identical twins naturally sparks these kinds of questions, doesn't it? It makes their story ripe for such speculation.
So what kind of theories are we talking about here? Psychic links.
Pretty much. These theories delve into whether their incredibly intense connection, which is almost telepathic in its communication and mirroring, crossed into psychic or spiritual territory. Some speculate about a metaphysical link or an energy transfer.
An energy transfer.
Almost a soul-level fusion that culminated in Jennifer's sacrifice for June's release. The idea that their souls or spirits were so fused that a literal separation required one to step aside, not just physically, but spiritually.
Wow. That's out there, but you can see how people get there with this story.
It speaks to a human desire to find deeper mystical explanations for events that defy our scientific understanding, especially when dealing with such an extraordinary and poignant relationship that seems to transcend typical human bonds.
Absolutely. It taps into that deep human fascination with twin connections that feel almost supernatural. And finally, some discussions draw a fascinating, if unsettling, link between their intense, shared fiction writing
Back to the right.
and the concept of self-fulfilling psychological scripts.
This is a particularly compelling angle because their writing wasn't just a hobby, it was an entire parallel universe they inhabited. They created elaborate narratives, detailed characters, vivid plot lines.
That often mirrored their own inner turmoil.
Exactly.
Remember, we discussed their notebooks filled with novels and poems, often with dark and violent themes of sacrifice, entrapment, escape. Given these vivid, often disturbing narratives they created, could their shared internal narrative, this powerful psychological script they co-authored for years, have unconsciously or even consciously manifested in their real-world actions?
And ultimately, their tragic ending. It's a profound thought.
How so?
Their stories weren't just fiction, they were elaborate, shared psychological blueprints. For example, some of Jennifer's characters often faced impossible choices, sacrificing themselves for a greater good or for the freedom of another.
While June's characters
Often grappled with the burden of survival, having escaped some form of captivity. It's almost as if they were unconsciously writing their own destiny, and the lines between their fiction and their reality blurred to a fatal degree.
So not magic, but psychology.
Exactly. This isn't about magical thinking, but the potent psychological power of narrative, of belief systems. How deeply ingrained stories can shape our perception of possibilities and limits.
For you, our listener, what does this all mean for understanding the profound power of belief, narrative, and shared delusion in shaping reality? Even if, hopefully on a less extreme and tragic scale than the silent twins.
It makes you wonder how much the stories we tell ourselves, individually or collectively, can truly influence the trajectory of our lives.
It's an unnerving thought that our internal narratives could manifest so powerfully. As we move into our analysis, let's revisit some of the most profound aspects of this case, starting with the sheer uniqueness of twin identity and codependency exemplified by June and Jennifer.
This case is an extraordinary, almost unparalleled illustration of the psychological intensity of twin identity, especially when compounded by severe trauma like the intense bullying they experienced.
And their extreme social isolation.
Right. Their bond wasn't just close, it was a total immersion of one identity into another, creating a singular unit that viewed the outside world as hostile and incomprehensible.
And that diagnosis, the folie à deux.
It becomes incredibly vivid when you examine their story. It wasn't merely that they had similar delusions, it was a mutually reinforced delusional world, a complete psychological codependency that defined their very existence and insulated them from external reality. They weren't just two individuals with similar thoughts, they were effectively a merged psychological entity.
So how does one even begin to untangle such a profound fusion of identity? For individuals so deeply intertwined, so completely reliant on each other for their sense of self, how does one ever truly achieve a separate individual identity?
Especially when external interventions like institutional care are involved. It seems almost an impossible task.
It's a truly vexing question, and one that psychiatric professionals wrestled with at the time. How do you disentangle two souls that have fused into one, especially when that fusion has been a coping mechanism against a hostile world?
It speaks to the fundamental human need for connection, but here, distorted and magnified into an all-consuming exclusive bond. Their case pushes the boundaries of our understanding of what constitutes an individual self. It challenges the very notion of singularity.
And that brings us back to the mysterious nature of Jennifer's death and the profound power of the mind. While medically unconfirmed and certainly controversial,
Very controversial.
the possibility of autosuggestion or a psychosomatic illness leading to Jennifer's acute myocarditis remains a haunting and central aspect of this story.
It absolutely does, and it forces us to confront the limits of our understanding about the human body and mind. June's unwavering belief in Jennifer's deliberate sacrifice.
And her chilling description of Jennifer stating, "I'm going to have to die now," before she actually died.
It gives this theory its profound emotional and circumstantial weight. Her subsequent declaration of freedom following Jennifer's passing further complicates any simple medical explanation.
It doesn't just fit neatly into a box.
Not at all. This isn't to say we ignore the medical facts, the myocarditis diagnosis, but rather that the psychological context is so overwhelming, it forces a reevaluation of what could have happened.
It truly challenges our fundamental understanding of the human will, the hidden depths of psychological influence, and the profound, often inexplicable connections between our mental and physical states.
It suggests a level of control over one's own physiology that most of us can barely comprehend. A silent pact enacted at the most fundamental biological level, perhaps.
It's a powerful reminder that our mental and emotional states are not separate from our physical being.
Indeed. In extreme cases of trauma, belief, or psychological pressure, the body can react in ways that defy conventional medical explanation. Jennifer's death, within the context of their shared life and June's testimony, remains a stark, unsettling example of this potential.
Making it a pivotal case study in the mind-body connection, even if the precise mechanism remains elusive.
Exactly.
And thinking about how such a complex condition was handled. If we connect this to the bigger picture, the case of the silent twins reflects significantly on the limitations and controversies of mental health treatment within institutions like Broadmoor during the 1980s and early 1990s.
Absolutely. Their selective mutism, for example, rather than being fully understood as a complex coping mechanism for their pain and trauma from bullying, a protective mechanism, really, it was often treated primarily as a behavioral problem.
Something to be fixed or controlled.
Right. Rather than deeply understood. This approach, prevalent in that era, likely missed the profound psychological underpinnings of their withdrawal. It was a symptom, not the root cause.
So the very interventions meant to help them might have inadvertently solidified their joint identity and shared delusion, rather than fostering individual mental health, like pouring water on a grease fire almost.
Precisely. Their long confinement and even attempts to separate them within the institution may have inadvertently deepened their shared delusion and strengthened their unbreakable bond. The lack of a nuanced, trauma-informed approach at the time meant that the system, despite its best intentions, may have simply reinforced the very isolation and codependency it sought to alleviate.
It really makes you question the system.
It raises an important question about how we, as a society and medical community, approach and understand highly complex psychological conditions, especially those deeply rooted in shared identity and early life trauma. Are we still making similar mistakes today, perhaps just in different forms, by not always seeing the full picture of a patient's lived experience?
That's a vital consideration for anyone interested in mental health and institutional care then and now. So what does this all mean for June, the surviving twin? Her life fundamentally and irrevocably changed after Jennifer's sudden death.
It was a transformation of seismic proportions. For the first time in her life, June began speaking to others, hesitantly at first, but then gradually she started integrating into society.
Finding a voice.
Finding a voice, both literally and figuratively, that had been silent for decades. She found a degree of freedom and independent existence she had never known before. She continued to write, apparently, but with new themes, exploring her grief, her liberation, and the complex legacy of her sister.
Her existence became a testament to the cost of that liberation.
Yes.
But this newfound freedom, this ability to finally engage with the world, came at an unimaginable and deeply mysterious price. It forces us to reflect on how such a profound sacrifice and June's unwavering belief in it would inevitably shape her subsequent life.
Her identity, her memory of her sister, all of it.
Imagine carrying that knowledge, that belief that your twin willingly died so you could live. How does one truly fully live with that kind of liberation, knowing the cost?
It's a burden and a freedom all intertwined, a bittersweet existence defined by absence and newfound presence.
A profound paradox.
This raises an important question for you, our listener, to ponder. If identity can be shared so deeply, so intimately intertwined to the point of a single unit, is it truly possible for one soul to step aside, or even sacrifice itself, for the other to finally find individual existence? It's a haunting thought, one that lingers long after the facts are laid bare.
Thank you for joining us on this unsettling exploration of the silent twins, June and Jennifer Gibbons, and the enduring mystery of their bond and Jennifer's death. We hope this examination has offered you new insights into the profound mysteries of identity, sacrifice, and the complex inner workings of the human mind. Next time on Threads of Truth, we examine the mysterious case of Joan Risch, a suburban housewife who vanished from her Massachusetts home in 1961, leaving behind overturned furniture, blood on the walls, and a trail of library books about disappearances.